Y'all, I need you to sit down for this one because what I'm about to tell you is going to shake the table so hard, the whole Democratic Party is going to feel it. They just admitted something in Newsweek that we've been saying for decades, and now that it's in black and white, we need to have a serious conversation about what happens next. Listen, family, I'm going to read you something that should make every black person in America stand up and pay attention. According to a recent Newsweek opinion piece titled "From Decline to Revival: Why Democrats Must Repair Their Relationship with Black Voters," researchers Christopher Sebastian Parker and Christopher Towler from Black Insight Research just put Democrats on blast with one simple truth. Let's be real. Without support from the black community, there is no viable Democratic Party. Let me say that again slower for the people in the back. Without support from the black community, there is no viable Democratic Party. Now, some of y'all are probably thinking, LaSherika, we already knew this. And you're absolutely right. We've been knowing this. But what's different now is that they finally admitted it in writing in a major publication, and they're conducting what they call a post-2024 autopsy to figure out why they lost so many of us. Here's what I want y'all to understand. When someone tells you that you are essential to their survival, that means you have power. That means you have leverage. And what do you do when you have leverage? You use it. The Democratic Party is in panic mode right now because black voter turnout dropped dramatically in 2024. We went from the historic numbers we saw with Obama in 2008 and 2012 down to close to 2016 levels, and they're shook. They should be. But here's where I need to check some of y'all real quick. I'm seeing people online talking about, well, maybe we should give Republicans a chance, or both parties are the same anyway. Stop. Right there. That's exactly what they want you to think. The article mentions that one strategy was to flood the zone with as much misinformation or disinformation as possible to try and make both parties seem sort of comparable. Don't fall for that psychological warfare. We're not switching teams, we're changing the game entirely. See, what these researchers understand and what the Democratic establishment is finally starting to grasp is that black voters are not some monolithic group that's going to automatically show up just because you wave a rainbow flag and play "We Shall Overcome" at your rallies. We're sophisticated voters with sophisticated needs, and we've been getting played with the same tired playbook for decades. The article talks about how Democrats have been trying to keep the black vote with tired civil rights appeals. Y'all, that's code for we keep talking about the past instead of addressing the present. They want to give us speeches about what Martin Luther King would have wanted while we're dealing with medical debt, housing costs that would make a millionaire cry, and an education system that's failing our children. Let me break down what this autopsy really reveals. Democrats are conducting this analysis not because they suddenly grew a conscience, but because they realize they cannot win without us, but they also cannot keep winning with the same old strategies. The data is crystal clear. Black voters, especially younger black voters under 34, are walking away. Not necessarily to the Republican Party, mind you, but they're walking away nonetheless. Some are going to Trump, others are just staying home. And the Democratic Party is finally admitting what we've been screaming. This is an existential crisis for them. But here's the million-dollar question. If we have this much power, if we are this essential to their survival, why are we still having conversations about whether black people deserve reparations? Why are we still fighting for basic police reform? Why are our communities still underfunded, underserved, and overlooked? The answer is simple: because we keep giving them our votes before we get our tangibles. I need y'all to understand something that these political scientists laid out perfectly in this piece. The Democratic Party has been taking us for granted because they assumed we had nowhere else to go. They figured, well, Republicans are worse, so black folks will vote for us by default. And for decades, that strategy worked. But here's what changed. We stopped accepting scraps. We stopped being grateful for the bare minimum. We stopped pretending that better than terrible equals good enough. The article mentions that Republicans have been appealing to black Americans' conservative instincts with issues like school vouchers and appeals to black professionals through tax cuts. Now, I'm not saying these are the answers, but what I am saying is that Republicans recognize something Democrats didn't. Black voters have diverse interests and concerns that go beyond just civil rights nostalgia. We care about economics, we care about education, we care about entrepreneurship, we care about crime in our neighborhoods, we care about having choices in where our children go to school, we care about building generational wealth, and for too long, Democrats acted like acknowledging these concerns was somehow betraying the movement. Let me tell you what real betrayal looks like. It's promising people change every election cycle and then telling them to be patient for another 4 years. It's using our pain as a campaign strategy and then forgetting our priorities priorities the moment you get in office. It's taking our votes and then telling us that what we're asking for is too radical or politically impossible. The researchers in this article point out that Black turnout dropped dramatically from 2020 to 2024. Y'all want to know why? Because people got tired of being treated like political props instead of political partners. Joe Biden got up to 87% of Black votes in 2020, but by 2024, we were looking at numbers that had Democrats sweating bullets. And it wasn't because Black people suddenly fell in love with conservatism. It was because we finally said, if you want our votes, show us the receipts. Now, I need to address the elephant in the room. Some people are going to say, LaSherika, if we don't vote Democrat, Republicans are going to make things worse. And to that I say, worse than what? Worse than having the highest maternal mortality rates? Worse than having our children murdered by police with no accountability? Worse than watching our neighborhoods get gentrified while we get pushed out? Worse than being essential to a political party's survival but non-essential to their policy priorities? The beauty of this moment is that Democrats are finally admitting what we've always known. They need us more than we need them. And when someone needs you more than you need them, that's when you set the terms. Here's what those terms should look like. And I'm going to be very specific because vague promises and pretty speeches don't pay bills or change lives. First, we want targeted economic policies that address the racial wealth gap. Not just small business loans that are hard to access, but real, substantive programs that help Black families build wealth. We're talking about down payment assistance for homeownership, targeted investment in Black-owned businesses, and yes, we're talking about reparations. Second, we want education policies that give our families real choices. If you want to talk about school vouchers, let's talk about it. If you want to talk about fully funding HBCUs, let's do that too. But don't come to us with half measures and then act like we should be grateful. Third, we want criminal justice reform that goes beyond symbolic gestures. We want accountability for police misconduct, but we also want investment in our communities that addresses the root causes of crime. Fourth, we want healthcare policies that address the specific health disparities our community faces. We want research into sickle cell disease to get the same funding and attention as other conditions. We want maternal mortality rates addressed with the urgency they deserve. Fifth, we want to see Black people in positions of real power, not just symbolic roles. We want Black judges, Black prosecutors, Black governors, and Black senators who are accountable to our community's interests. The article mentions that Democrats need to pursue Black low-propensity voters. That's political speak for Black people who don't regularly vote. But here's what they're missing. These aren't low-propensity voters. These are voters with high standards who are tired of low-quality options. You want to activate Black voters? Give us something to be activated about. You want us to show up to the polls? Show up for our communities when it's not election season. The researchers talk about the need for Democrats to reset their trajectory and rebuild for the future. Well, let me tell you what that rebuild needs to look like. It needs to start with respect, continue with real policies that address our real needs, and end with results we can measure and verify. For too long, we've been told that our demands are unrealistic, that we need to be practical, that we should accept incremental change. But incremental change is just another way of saying not in your lifetime, and we're done with that. The data in this article shows that Black voters are becoming more pessimistic about the American political system's ability to fix problems. That's not apathy, that's wisdom. We've seen this movie before and we know how it ends, with promises made and promises broken, with our votes taken and our voices ignored. But here's what's different now. We have the research, we have the data, and we have political scientists putting it in black and white that Democrats cannot survive without us. That's not just power, that's documented, verified, peer-reviewed power. So here's my message to the Democratic Party. We heard what you said. You admitted that without Black support, there is no viable Democratic Party. Well, guess what? We're listening now, and we're ready to negotiate. But we're not negotiating from a position of desperation anymore. We're negotiating from a position of strength. We're not asking for a seat at the table. We're demanding to help set the menu. The article talks about how Democrats must repair their relationship with Black voters. Well, repair work starts with acknowledgement of what's broken, and what's broken is trust. You broke our trust by taking our votes for granted. You broke our trust by promising change and delivering excuses. You broke our trust by treating us like a guaranteed constituency instead of valued partners. Trust, once broken, isn't easily repaired. It takes time, it takes consistency, and most importantly, it takes tangible results. To my Black family listening to this, I need you to understand that this moment is bigger than any one election. This is about establishing a new relationship with political power in this country. This is about moving from being junior partners to being equal stakeholders. We've been the Democratic Party's most loyal voting bloc for decades, and what do we have to show for it? We still have the highest poverty rates, the lowest wealth accumulation, the highest incarceration rates, and the worst health outcomes. That's not a coincidence. That's what happens when you give away your power without getting anything concrete in return. The researchers in this article are basically telling Democrats, y'all better figure this out because the Black community is done playing games. And they're right. We're done with symbolic politics. We're done with photo opportunities. We're done with being trotted out during election season and ignored during governing season. We're done with politicians who can quote James Baldwin but can't name 3 specific policies that would improve our lives. Moving forward, here's what we need to do as a community. We need to be strategic, we need to be unified, and we need to be relentless in our demands for tangible results. We need to support Black political candidates who are accountable to our community's interests, not just to the party line. We need to engage in local politics where our votes have more direct impact on our daily lives. We need to build economic power alongside political power. And most importantly, we need to remember that our votes are valuable precisely because they're not guaranteed. The moment we become predictable, we become powerless. The Democratic Party is conducting an autopsy on their 2024 losses, and that autopsy should reveal one clear cause of death, taking Black voters for granted. But here's the thing about autopsies. They're only useful if you learn from them and make changes to prevent the same outcome next time. Democrats, if you're listening, here's your lesson. We're not your backup plan, we're not your safety net, and we're definitely not your sure thing. We're your partners, and partners negotiate terms. You want our votes? Earn them? You want our trust? Rebuild it? You want our support? Show us why we should give it, because at the end of the day, we know something that you're just now admitting. Without us, there is no viable Democratic Party. But here's what you need to understand. Without tangible results, concrete policies, and real change, there's no viable relationship with us either. The choice is yours, Democrats. You can continue with business as usual and watch more of us walk away, or you can recognize that this moment requires a fundamental shift in how you approach Black voters. We're not coming back until we get our tangibles. And according to your own research, your own political scientists, and your own admission, without us, you don't have a party anyway. So the question isn't whether you can afford to meet our demands. The question is whether you can afford not to. Ball's in your court, Democrats. What's it going to be?